Today is Friday, the 20th of February 2026. My name is Francisco Gaffney, and this is my daily streaming all about governance, risk, compliance, and advisory boards. So let's end the week with the thing that derails good plans, which is scarcity. And when inputs become volatile, it's easy to panic, overpay, or freeze. So today is I like to look through the lenses of the supply resilience as an asset. So the ability to secure inputs, contracts, and partners becomes an advantage that shows up in margins and credibility. Now, I'm going to use an example, and bear with me because actually this can be applied to any product or service. I think that the job of the executive team, a board of advisors, and a board of executives or not executives, is just to not only to set the strategies and the governance and compliance, etc., and execution, also is to think how things are done in different environments and how these lessons can be applied on their own environments. And here's a good example, and bear with me because you will say, well, that's nothing to do with our services, nothing to do with our products. But it is, and I'm going to give you two examples, and you can explore ideas from there. Number one is I'm watching a listed London Stock Exchange company that states that helium is used across several end markets, gives a stated regional price range, and points to nearby semiconductor manufacturing as a target market for offtake. Now, helium is a live example because it is tied to essential services. And the UK Parliament, and here's an interesting thing, has raised questions about minimizing helium usage and reusing helium in the NHS MRI scanners in the light of a global shortages. That is a board level risk signal. So social resilience increases scrutiny, right? Now, scarcity is not only a procurement issue, it is a strategy issue. An example here is that the Parliament also is briefing on critical materials, highlights supply security concerns on the role of these materials within the complex value chain. So for one side, they are questioning it. For the other side, they say this is a strategic issue, right? This is a critical material. So scarcity only becomes an opportunity when you clearly connect the supply to the customers. Yeah? Okay. Now, think about this. The second example is an oil and gas company. They were very well put in the Northern Sea, oil and gas, and then they found something interesting. One European country decided by their Congress, and they published that on their official notices, that they wanted to cut short the import of natural gas. What this company did started secure rights of natural gas exploitation offshore in the ocean rights of this country. So natural gas now is reducing and aligned with the government requirements of reducing the imports of natural gas, and they are producing a product that is a natural gas, but in the national environment, right? So you see how something actually people say, how are we going to do this? A company found opportunities where everybody said, we are shrinking the market to the point that nobody can do it. So they become scarce for their environment, right? So in other words, imagine scarcity is like a traffic jam. You cannot remove it, but you can choose the line you are in, right? So you can watch what's going on around and say, oh, that line is going faster than this one. So even if it's a reduction in your mobility, you can pick the line or move around lines that actually are the ones that can give you better outputs in terms of reaching out to your destination in less time and the less time possible. So what the opportunity do most boards miss? So they focus on short edge, right? They don't focus on the structures. The structure, I mean, what is the environment that we are living where you have all these opportunities? So scarcity really creates three board opportunities. Number one, You can differentiate through resilience. So if you can secure a supply when others cannot, you become the reliable provider. Number two, you can shape pricing and terms. So not through bluster, through contract designs. And number three, you can attract better partners because your partners look for firms that de-risk the supply chain and all that chain. So back to the UK, what the context matters. And I give you another hint here. The national semiconductor strategy emphasizes resilience and security. So semiconductors are a dependence chain. Materials and gases feed it. Now, boards that understand this can tell a clear story about why the supply plan matters. And in healthcare, helium recovery and reuse are already focused in a focus area in UK science infrastructure. And you have the ISIS Neutron and Moon Source Facility, which is a research facility that has published work on helium recovery, showing institutions actively treating helium as something to manage, not a waste. You see, so you have the parliament, if you remember, I mentioned earlier, the parliament have two concerns. One is about restriction, the other one is about we have to be careful because it's a material that we have to control the supply chain. And in other side of the environment, you have independent researchers that say, hey, don't worry because we can help you because this is a manageable thing. It's not a waste. So you see, you're not depending only on the parliament negatives and positives. Also, you have independent research actually in the semiconductor and healthcare that actually are saying, oh, we can manage this. So as a board advisor, what I would propose to consider in this case, number one, build a scarcity map in 3 columns, which is a critical input, the single point of failure, and the mitigation levers. So substitution, recycling, long-term contracts, second suppliers, strategy stock, etc., etc. In this case, Parliament's work on critical materials gives you the context for why the map matters, right? So you can start to support your narrative with very, very solid environmental, the Parliament in this case, structures that actually are supporting what you're doing. Number two, translate scarcity into a contract logic. So where an offtake, a floor price, or a shared investment reduces risk for both sides. So in this case, the semiconductor strategy resilience framing supports the board narrative for long-term capability and supply security. Right. So then you have a second leg here that is nothing to do with the parliament, but actually semiconductor industries. Number three, treat recycling and recovery as a strategy, not a cosmetic. So the UK helium's recovery work shows that the recovery is a serious operational lever, especially in helium-heavy environments. So now you have a third leg of this narrative where there is independent research and supporting your initiatives here. And you say, well, again, we are talking about helium. Just think about the ideas, the principles. Where is in the environment that you are moving that all these levers you can pull? So independent research, independent validation from research and universities, laboratories, market research in terms of marketing, consumers. All your services and products have a scarcity position in one place in the environment that you're moving. It can be in your same country, in your own country, UK in this case, or like this other company I mentioned, oil and gas. They were very well in the UK, but they found a better opportunity in another country in the same European Union that is more aligned with the scarcity, with the level of scarcity in terms of what they can produce to satisfy those requirements from the government, right? Now, back to the live example of the helium. The company Investors Material described the helium end markets and provide a stated pricing range by region and purity with a commercial focus on customers near semiconductor manufacturing, etc., etc. That is exactly what boards should copy as a thinking pattern. And why I mention all these things. So let's reduce this to, this is not a commodity hype. It's a linkage of things. So it's an input, the customers, the contracts, and the evidence. In the evidence, we mentioned all these 3 legs of evidence where you can support your narrative. So you have your input, you have your customers, you have your contracts, and then your proof. Now, why does the scarcity map approach matter? For three things: outcomes, differentiators, and risk reductions. In terms of outcomes, you live with a one-page scarcity map template you can run in 30 minutes board discussions. So plus the language to explain this credibly to investors and stakeholders, right? Because you have all this validation or evidence that is credible to your investors and stakeholders. Number two is the differentiator. You focus on turning a scarcity market into a practical plan, linking end markets, indicative pricing references, and target customers, rather than telling a vague big market story. Oh, this is a total addressable market, but no, you're making it very solid, very clear, and why. And number three, how you reduce your risk. You anchor the narrative in UK public evidence on critical materials, in this particular case of helium. In the other country is with the Congress decision to reduce the import of natural gas, or the healthcare resilience and resilience strategies, or so the story stand up under boards and investor scrutiny, right? Now, one action you can take home today, and it's doable in 30 minutes or less. List your top 5 inputs, mark which have a single point of failure, and write one mitigation move for each you can start this quarter. Now, let's pause here today, because that was a lot of things to think about, and reconvene next week, because next week I'm going to start to work in the whole map of the company, how you structure, where you can find the gaps to make your company more resilient, raise capital, accelerate the market, or if you are in the ambiguity of making a decision where you're going to go next and what is the strategy you're going to implement, I'm going to start to unpack all these for you. And as an advisor, if you need a B team looking at your scarcity map, set up a 30-minute call with me so I can understand your position, how an independent advisory board can help you from the outside in. Not only help you, also your teams, without stepping on your toes, without a traditional consulting overhead, and without the public theater. Now, have a great weekend, and